All right, so boom. Happy New Year, but I'm not too happy because the Philadelphia Eagles have decided to sit Saquon Barkley while he's on the cusp of breaking an NFL record that has sat for 40 years. And before we get into the whole, well, he can get hurt. Remember what happened with Le'Veon Bell in 2014? He was a damn near a fourth of the Steelers offense, and he got hurt in a meaningless game with Reggie Nelson hit him in the knee, and then he wasn't available in the playoffs, and they got eliminated in the wild card. You do understand in the NFL, you can get hurt at any moment. You could rest Saquon Barkley for this week, and then all of a sudden he gets hurt in the playoff, and then what, right? Now you missed out on a chance on history. But let's just go down memory lane. The NFL's been around for now 105 years. I think it's 104. In the history of the NFL, there's only been 7 individuals who had the privilege of setting the record for the most rushing yards in a season. Battles, Music, Feathers, Van Buren, Brown, Simpson, and now Dickerson. In the history of the NFL, 7. Only 9 has ran for 2,000. That now includes Saquon Barkley. And if you take into account the amounts of games that was played, because I see some people say, well, it wouldn't have mattered because he has to play an extra game. Jim Brown set the record at 1,500 some yards in 1958 in 12 games. They added 2 games, and then it was 14. He said, I bet, here's 1,800 for that ass. That record stayed for 11 years. O.J. Simpson, the Juice, ran for 2,000 in 14 games, averaged like 143 yards per game. I think that's still an NFL record, and it's been over 50 years. I don't think anybody's going to break that. Then here comes Eric Dickerson, high off of an 1,800-yard season his rookie year, goes for 21.05, and that sat for 40 years. And let me just preference this, right? People who talk about, well, it's meaningless. You have to understand, it's not just this season that this plays a role for. It's the legacy of your entire career. Because when you think about the 2,000, yard rushers in the history of the game, all of them aren't Hall of Famers, right? Simpson did it first. He's in the Hall of Fame. Dickerson did it next. He's in the Hall of Fame. Then you had Barry Sanders and then Terrell Davis back to back. Call it what it is. Terrell Davis is in the Hall of Fame, but you can make an argument he shouldn't be in there because you had the injury that ultimately cut his career short, everything of that nature. So it was not only what he had done in such a small sample size, but you got guys who got a full career, who's got better numbers, who unfortunately haven't made it to the Hall, but he's in there. You can make an argument that he shouldn't be there. Now, granted, I'm not taking away from his greatness, but there's a reason why I'm bringing this up. After him, who went for 2,000? Jamal Lewis, 2003. Now, granted, he was the offensive, player of the year. Is he in the Hall of Fame? No. Will he get into the Hall of Fame? Probably not. CJ2K went for 2,000. He gonna get into the Hall of Fame? Unfortunately, no. I don't see that happening. Adrian Peterson, he will get in when it's his time. And then Derrick Henry, the way he's been playing now, take a look at the trajectory, he'll probably mess around and get in. If Saquon Barkley, who now broke the 2,000, were to get injured and his career ended in the playoffs and he never played another down of football, is he a surefire Hall of Famer? Hell no, he's not. Now think about what it can do for your legacy if you now are the single season rushing record holder. There's a reason why Mark Gastineau was ready to crash out on Brett Favre when he seen him for the first time. And I think this might have been the first time they ever met. It was 23 plus years from the time that Brett Favre laid on the ground, pretty much gave himself up to give Michael Strahan the record that broke Gastineau's, single season sack record. There's a reason why that man was ready to crash out. Not just because, he was bitter, but that changes the way that you're remembered. You got to remember, a lot of guys who've played in the NFL, albeit great and everything of that nature, there's Hall of Famers that's in like that upper room, as Deion Sanders had once said they should have, and then just other Hall of Famers who they in the Hall, but they not as memorable as the other guys. If you put yourself in a situation where you have an all-time record, every time you sign an autograph, every time you take a photo, every time you go somewhere, or they're talking about NFL history, they have to bring your name up. And the people who blocked for you will have the privilege of saying, yo, I blocked for this guy. That adds their stake in possibly contending for the Hall of Fame, getting those All-Pro nods, getting those Pro Bowl nods, because guess what? season by season, there's a lot of times in which they're giving out all-pro nods, they're giving out Pro Bowls to individuals. Because of a season prior, you can mess around and get the nod for an all-pro. Well, maybe not so much an all-pro, but a Pro Bowl over somebody else who had a better season just because of your affiliation with what transpired. It's fucked up, but let's call it what it is. It's something that happens. How many times have you seen people go to the Pro Bowl that had no business going to the doggone Pro Bowl? It's one of those popularity contest kind of situations. All pros are a little bit more difficult, but you can somehow squeeze your way in there sometimes. But this is a situation where you have a chance to really make NFL history, and you sit in this man for what? Granted, playing against the New York Giants, divisional game, rivalry, if you will, and vengeance for Saquon Barkley for a team that let this man go. Didn't want to pay him a position that is over disrespected, undervalued, not paid the appropriate way. Here you have a guy who you just let walk, goes to another team in division, and has the opportunity to set the all-time record against you. You think people wouldn't tune in? Think about it from a ratings perspective. You think people wouldn't tune in? Like, this is ridiculous. How do you sit this man? Now, I understand last year, Saquon, you had A.J. Brown playing the game, got hurt. Then he wasn't available for the postseason, and that game was meaningless in the grand scheme of things, but he wasn't on the cusp of setting an NFL record. Let's think about some of those guys that broke the 2000 who played in meaningless games. Jamal Lewis, 2003, did not need to play in that final game. Baltimore had shored up the AFC North. Cincinnati wasn't going to catch them that year. They played against Pittsburgh, and he still was able to go and break that 2000 and kept playing throughout the game, and they won in overtime. But it was a meaningless game. Did not matter. For Derrick Henry, they had to win in order to lock up the AFC South in 2020, but he needed 211 or 212 yards in order to break the 2000. He exploded for 250 against Houston. And at one point while watching the game, you can see they were saying, fuck it, let's just keep running it. To hell with throwing the damn football. Let's just keep running it. Granted, Derrick Henry was the whole doggone team, but you don't get opportunities like this, because how many running backs in the history of the NFL of those who ran for 2000 did it again? Zero. It's never happened. Zero. The only person who came close was Derrick Henry in, what was it, 2021? He ran for like 900 some yards in 7 games and a quarter, I think it was, and then he got hurt, he was done. And upon returning back, I think he did come back for like the last game of the season, maybe the last 2 games, I forget. But he wasn't able to go and get to 1,000 for all intents and purposes. But his trajectory looked crazy that year, but the injury happened in the middle of the season. In this case, you have an opportunity, last game of the season. Think about what happened with Brady and Moss. Both of them setting the single season touchdown records, one for passing, ultimately ended up getting broken by Peyton Manning with 55, but the Patriots were undefeated. They were 15-0. You had nothing to play for. The number 1 seed was already locked up. Granted, you're chasing perfection, right? But wouldn't perfection be meaningless if the entire doggone, goal is to win the championship? Why go for it? Because you have the opportunity to do something nobody else has ever done. Up until that point with the 16-0 season. Everybody knows about the 72 Dolphins with their 14-0. But one way or another, you have an opportunity to set something. Moss's record still hasn't been broken, and he passed up Jerry, right? So here you have a scenario where you're chasing history. Think about what happens after you don't do it and things don't work out in your favor. A la the 2009 Indianapolis Colts. Jim Caldwell at halftime, 14-0. You're playing in the 15th game of the season. Said, fuck it, we're going to rest our starters. To hell with perfection. Let's just worry about the postseason. You lose the final 2 games of the season. You make it to the Super Bowl. You lose to New Orleans. Ask Peyton Manning. You can Google it right now. Find an interview when they talked about that 2009 season. You start 14-0, not chasing perfection. He regrets it. Ask Reggie Wayne. Ask Dwight Freeney. Ask Robert Mathis. Ask all those guys about that the 2009 season. Albeit you lost in the Super Bowl, but you had a chance to set a 16-0 record. You didn't get the opportunity because the coach pulled it. You think Saquon Barkley 10 years from now is going to be on some, yeah, that was a good decision. What happens if you don't win the Super Bowl? Then what? Let's say you do go on and you win the Super Bowl. You still could have won the damn Super Bowl and set the record. Terrell Davis, 1998. Did the Broncos have anything to play for? Hell no. They already stirred up the number 1 seed. There was no reason for TD to go and play. But he played anyway. And he got the 2000, got the MVP, and then ultimately went on to win the Super Bowl. Both can be achieved. I understand you'd put the offensive line at risk because they could potentially mess around and get hurt. But you don't think they're also itching for the opportunity to have their names etched next to Saquon Barkley as the guys who blocked for the guy who set the all-time record? There's a complete missed opportunity. And I would really hope there's a way that they can reconsider, because it's incredibly foolish to be on the cusp of setting NFL history and then you pass on it. I can't find a single scenario where this makes sense. And none of this has to do with the fact that he's playing against his former team. It's got everything to do with you don't get these kinds of situations often, and let alone find yourself in the position and you completely, unilaterally make the decision to go and squander it. I personally feel like this disrespectful to the history of the game. Because for you to say, I got it here and fuck it. It's not like a Barry Sanders scenario where you're 1 season away from breaking, Walter Payton's record for the most rushing yards in a career. And you say, you know what? My body's banged up. We losing. I don't want to play. This is completely different. This one game. Because remember, you're going to play in 2 weeks regardless. Somebody call up Philly. Get Saquon Barkley on the doggone field. Because this is ridiculous. Y'all let me know in the comment section what y'all think about this decision. Because me personally, I am 110% against it. Play Saquon. Not only for the enjoyment of the fans, but also for the right to become the NFL's all-time single-season rushing record holder. Eric Dickerson may not want to see his record get broken, but I'll tell you something right now. That man will have a smile on his face like, somebody got me. Come on, man. Do the right thing. Hey, I appreciate you watching the entire video. Make sure to hit the subscribe button and the like button on the way out if you haven't already. And on top of that, hit that notification bell as well. For whatever reason, YouTube's only showing my videos to 20% of my subscribers. So if you have already turned on the notification bell, turn it off, turn it back on. If you never turn it on, turn it on. I appreciate you.